Hi, everyone. This is Colleen Dieter with ATXGardens.com. Welcome to the ATX Gardens Podcast. With over 20 years of experience helping Central Texans with their yards, I'm a certified arborist, sustainable landscape designer, and founder of Central Texas Seed Savers. This week on the podcast, I'll give you timely tips on what to do for your plants right now. But first, if you're watching me on YouTube, please click the like button, click the subscribe button, and put your questions and comments in the comments box, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. You can also follow me on Instagram at ATXGardens_. That's with the low hyphen at the end, ATXGardens_. And finally, for more information on today's topics, hang around till the end of the show and I'll share some resources with you so you can follow up with more information. Thanks for listening. Okay, hey there, everybody. I'm so excited that you're joining me today for the first episode of my new podcast. I'm Colleen Dieter, a landscape consultant at ATXGardens.com. So some of my customers told me that they wish that they could get alerts or reminders from me about what to do in their yards. And while I'm working on other ways to send alerts, I figured maybe a podcast would be a good way to keep everyone in the loop about what's happening in our Austin and Central Texas gardens. And today's episode is all about what to do in your landscape and garden in late September. But before we get to our late September gardening to-do list, this episode is sponsored by my landscape consulting business at ATXGardens.com. I help my customers by alleviating their anxieties about their yards. If you book a consultation with me, you can ask me anything about what to plant, how to care for your soil, tree problems, lawn maintenance, anything you can think of. You can make an appointment with me for a landscape consultation at your property at atxgardens.com. And of course, there's a link in the show notes. So, all right, let's get to the show. In general, this week, do not trim any of your trees, shrubs, or perennials now. And trimming at this time of year will stimulate new growth, and we need the plants to all stop actively growing in order to get ready for winter. Mid-September is also the last chance to fertilize anything. So that includes potted plants outdoors, trees, roses, lawns, and perennials. Don't fertilize your plants after October 1st. The fertilizer will stimulate new growth, and in the winter, we want the plants to stop growing. If you don't know what kind of fertilizer to use, don't just buy whatever and put it on stuff. Okay? Fall is a great time for soil testing instead, and I recommend sending a sample to the Texas A&M University Soil Lab or the Texas Plant and Soil Lab or any soil lab in the US to find out what nutrients your soil is missing. I really recommend it, especially for vegetable gardens and fruit orchards, because those plants tend to need more nutrients than the landscape plants. September can be hot and damp, and those are good conditions for plants to get fungal diseases. So if you have a history of fungal diseases in your yard, now is time to sprinkle some cornmeal over fungal spots in the lawn. You can spray any plant, especially turf grass lawns, with actinovate to inoculate it with beneficial microbes. And actinovate is available via the show notes or on my website at atxgardens.com. Homemade compost tea would work for that too, for inoculating your plants with beneficial microbes to help elbow out the diseases. Late September is time to transplant any kind of plant. So at this time of the year, most of our plants are reaching their maximum size. And if your landscape is looking a little crowded or overgrown, where maybe too many plants are covering each other up, now it's a good time to take some plants out, move them to open spaces, maybe where some plants died during the summer, or take plants out and pass them along to a friend. A border spade is a great tool for transplanting, and that is available in the show notes and at atxgardens.com through my Amazon affiliate links. So I do receive commissions for those purchases. And something else that I'm doing this week is I'm organizing shopping lists for plants for my own garden and also for my customers. This is a great time for plant shopping and plant sharing. I offer plant shopping and delivery services as a follow-up service to customers after they hire me for consulting. I have access to wholesale nurseries and growers, so I have access to larger numbers of plants than you might be able to get yourself. So if you're interested in plant shopping and delivery service, make an appointment with me at atxgardens.com. All right, up next, I'm going to talk about woody plants. So that's all the trees and shrubs and roses. So mid-September kicks off the planting season for woody plants. This planting season continues until mid-March, April 1st at the latest. And I'll talk about that more in future podcast episodes, of course. And this time of year is a really good time to shop for trees because many of the trees will start going on sale because they start to lose their leaves. And when they lose their leaves, they're less attractive and less sellable, even though it's best to plant the tree when it loses its leaves, when they're dormant and not actively growing. That's the best time to plant. Plus, some of the nurseries will be wanting to make room for winter seasonal plants like Christmas trees and pumpkins for Halloween and stuff like that. So check out your locally owned garden center for the best plant choices and look for those trees and shrubs now. And in your yard, some of your trees are going to start losing their leaves October, November time. If you use a leaf blower for leaf management in fall and winter, make sure that it's working now. If it's gas powered and it needs to be serviced, do that now. And of course, I'm going to encourage you, if possible, to go electric or use a rake. And in future podcasts, I'll be talking a lot more about leaf management. Okay, so get your leaf blower serviced or think about getting a leaf blower if you think you need one. All right, this time of year, a lot of times we get webworms coming into our trees. Those are caterpillars that spin big silky pouches that protect them from predators while they dine on your trees. If you have one or two pouches in a tree, especially if it's a big old tree, that's really nothing to worry about and you don't need to intervene. But if more than 1/3 of your tree has webworms, that's a more serious situation. And there's a few things that you can do. If you can reach the webs, pull them down wearing gloves and smash the caterpillars inside. If you can reach them with pruners or a pole saw, you can just cut off the infested stems. If you can't cut them, but you're able to reach them with something sharp, just poking a hole in the pouch can help predatory wasps enter the pouch to feed on the caterpillars. So those beneficial wasps will come and eat the caterpillars for you if you can open a door for them. Moving on with other stuff going on with trees and shrubs right now. You guys know that I'm the founder of Central Texas Seed Savers. And we have a program called the Seed to Tree Partnership with Tree Folks, which is Austin's own tree planting organization. And fall is peak time for collecting acorns, nuts, and other tree seeds to send to Tree Folks. And they will plant those seeds in their Seeds to Trees native nursery. And then after those seeds sprout, they will plant those seedlings out throughout Central Texas in their reforestation programs and community tree plantings. There's a link to the Seed to Tree Partnership and the Central Texas Seed Savers website in the show notes, and that link has collection instructions. So if you think it'll be fun to collect tree seeds for us, please do. I am obsessed. I'm going to be collecting tree seeds this fall for sure. I think it's really fun. So check out those directions in the show notes. Okay, if you have roses, now is a really good time to spray them with compost tea or other beneficial microbe inoculants to prevent diseases. And I recommend one called Arbor Biofungicide. And there's a link to purchase it in the show notes, or you can find it at ATXGardens.com. Now we're going to take a little break here in the middle of the show to hear from our sponsors. And because it's the first episode, I only have one sponsor, and it's myself. Hi, all. This is Colleen Dieter, and you're listening to the ATX Gardens Podcast. You know, I give plenty of garden advice on the show, but there's nothing like meeting in person to get the best information for your plants and landscape. And that's what I can do for you. Visit atxgardens.com. As a certified arborist and professional gardener, I've been giving advice to do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. I help my customers by alleviating their anxieties about their yards. Visit atxgardens.com to book a consultation with me. During the consultation, we'll walk through your yard together and answer all of your questions. Also at atxgardens.com, you can shop Colleen's favorite things. That's gardening apparel, tools, and books that I will often mention during this podcast, all things that I love. From trees to vegetables to wildflowers, I'm here to help. Make an appointment at atxgardens.com. Okay, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about perennials and bulbs. Now is a great time for planting perennials and ornamental grasses. Perennials are plants that grow up in the spring, bloom in the summer and fall, and then the tops of the plants die in the winter, but they grow back again in the spring. So examples include lantanas and indigo spires salvias. It's also a good time for planting most bulbs too, and you want to make sure that you get bulbs that are adapted for southern gardens. It's also a great time for dividing bulbs. And so, some examples of bulbs that work well in Central Texas are irises, daylilies, canna lilies, amaryllis, also known as hippeastrums. And there's more like iphions, your little schoolhouse lilies, rain lilies, that kind of thing. You can divide all of them now. I like to use a digging fork or a border spade for this job. And both of those tools are linked in the show notes. And they're also available at atxgardens.com. And speaking of dividing, it's also a good time to divide perennials. So, again, if some of your plants are starting to get really big, if you feel like they're getting overgrown in the way that they look, or maybe even they're breaking open, like they're getting so tall and top heavy that they've started flopping open, that's a sign that it's time to divide them. So certain plants like indigo spires or their relatives like Amistad sage and Forsythia sage, those plants sometimes will flop open at this time of year, and dividing can help. At atxgardens.com, you can purchase my 3-volume set of booklets called Let's Care for Texas Plants. And there are diagrams in those booklets and instructions about how to care for and divide bulbs and perennials. All right. Now is a little part of the show that I like to call nature stuff. What's going on in nature in Central Texas right now? Hummingbirds should be arriving on their fall migration. So get your feeder cleaned up. If you use a hummingbird feeder, get it cleaned up, and expect to be adding more food to it because there's going to be more hummingbirds coming through. I know that there's some that kind of stick around during the summer, but there's going to be more passing through now. And keep in mind, that plants are really the best way to feed hummingbirds. At my house, the hummingbirds love wax mallows, common sunflowers, and pokeweeds. Pokeweeds come up on their own, and I see the hummingbirds visiting them, so I didn't even have to do anything except leave them. Now, on to the vegetable garden. Mid and late September is a transitional time in the vegetable garden. So we're kind of going from hot season vegetables to cool season plants. So now is the time to take out any summer crops that aren't thriving anymore, or maybe you're tired of eating them too, like you're just over it. So that's like okra, black eyed peas, melons, peppers, tomatoes. They're all getting to the end of their lives now. If they still look good and they're productive and you're still enjoying them, you can keep them until the first freeze, which will happen sometime in November or December usually. But sometimes the plants are just ragged and they're just wrapping up, and it is totally fine to pull them out at this time of year. You might keep one plant from each species to collect seed from if you're interested in saving seeds, and I will definitely talk more about seed saving in later episodes of this podcast. But for the most part, you can clear out anything that isn't working anymore or that you're tired of eating. Use your judgment. Add some compost to the soil and then plant your cool season crops. Okay, so cool season crops are the vegetables that are going to live through the winter. So that's like arugula, peas, radishes, mustard, turnips, bok choy, Swiss chard, beets, collards, and kale. You can plant all of them now by sowing the seeds directly into the garden soil. Broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbages can be planted in the garden now, but they should be put in as small plants. And then you can also plant artichokes and their cousins, the cardoons, as small plants now as well. If you're going to take a break from vegetable gardening this winter, or you're going to let part of the garden rest this winter, you could plant a cover crop now. Alfalfa, rye, clovers, peas, and our own Texas bluebonnets are just a few of many cool season cover crops that you could plant right now, and that helps feed the soil during the winter and restore the soil. Because like I said earlier, the vegetables just they're they need a lot of nutrients and they take a lot of nutrients out of the soil. So you can restore the nutrients with cover crops. What's happening in the herb garden now? Now you could plant all of the perennial herbs. So stuff like oregano, common sage, thyme, all of the plants that live for many years are good to plant right now. Now is the time to start harvesting all of your warm season annual herbs like basil. So the annuals are the plants that only live for one season or for 1 year. And basil is one of them. So if your basil plants are really not thriving anymore after a long hot summer, you can remove them to make room for more cool season annual herbs like cilantro, parsley, dill, calendula, and fennel. All of those can get planted in October. Be sure to add compost to your planting areas before you plant anything new. It's time to take out the warm season stuff and start getting ready to plant your cool season stuff. Okay, now I know a lot of you are probably wondering about wildflower planting. This is one of the biggest questions that I get. And now is the time to plant wildflower seeds, especially bluebonnets, poppies, and larkspurs. So here's my recipe for wildflower success. What you want to do is get a wheelbarrow, a trash can, or a tarp, okay? And in that wheelbarrow or in that trash can or on top of the tarp, you're going to mix together 1 bag of compost. Any kind of compost will work, it doesn't matter. And 1 bag of granite sand. All right. Mix the compost and the granite sand together. Then mix your wildflower seeds with the compost and the sand. Then rake the area that you're seeding with a hard rake to make the soil slightly bumpy and kind of rough. Okay. And then spread the mix of compost, sand, and seeds over the top of the bumpy soil, kind of as evenly as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then walk over the area and press your seeds into the soil. Then it's really important to get down with your funkiest dance while you simultaneously ask Mother Nature to bring some rain to us this winter so the seeds will sprout. And so that's a really fun project to do with a bunch of friends, especially kids. So tune in to future episodes of the podcast for more guidance on how to care for the wildflowers as fall and winter arrives. All right, friends, that's it for this episode. Please like and subscribe on whatever podcatcher you're listening on. Write a review of the podcast for me. Please share this episode with a friend. If you have friends who are plant obsessed, please share with them. And follow me on Instagram and check out the show notes below for all those links. And thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. This is Colleen Dieter with ATXGardens.com. Thank you all so much for listening today. If you found my podcast helpful, please like and subscribe to the ATX Gardens Podcast. And please share this podcast with your friends and neighbors. Visit ATXGardens.com to book an appointment with me, and check out Let's Care for Texas Plants, my native plant maintenance guide. See you next week.